Let's widen out the political lens here in Michigan. The presidential primaries on February 27th. Early voting starts on Saturday, the 17th. And while this is, I believe the pretty much least competitive primary that we've seen here for a long time, there are some national groups that are encouraging Democrats to cross over here in Michigan and be a spoiler in the Republican primary and vote against former President Donald Trump. Let's bring in Dennis Darnoy. He's a political consultant, the founder of Densar Consulting, of course, a Flashpoint regular. Dennis, it's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Christy. I appreciate it.
All right, let's go ahead and jump in. First off, how can we compare this primary cycle to anything that we've seen before?
I don't know that we can. It's a completely different year. Honestly, it's a different and new world here in Michigan in the sense that we now have early voting. People can vote, 9 days in advance. So that will be interesting to see how that affects turnout. And how people participate. Before it was just absentee ballot or ballot box, and now there are different options available. And yesterday the Secretary of State put out some numbers that suggest that it's a very robust primary right now. So it'll be very interesting to see how that continues and to see obviously the president's coming into Michigan and to see if that has any impact on the Republican primary.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about these visits of the candidates. So we've got former President Trump coming in this weekend. President Biden was here just over a week ago. Vice President Kamala Harris is coming in very soon. What's the impact, do you think, on some of these visits?
Well, I think it's huge. And I've said before, and I think most people agree, Michigan is likely to determine the next president of the United States. There are a handful of states when you look at, Arizona and Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin that will decide it. And so, obviously Donald Trump feels like he has the Republican nomination wrapped up. The Biden-Harris team feels like they have the nomination wrapped up. So they want to be involved. They want to be in this state because, come November of this year, Michigan will have a very, large role in the overall election. So, we should be honest about it and say the general election has started 9 months early, and they can call these primary visits, but it really is trying to jumpstart the general election in November.
Yeah, Dennis, what do you make of some of the national groups that are calling for Democrats to cross over and vote in the Republican primary, specifically in Michigan, South Carolina, trying to keep Nikki Haley alive in this primary race?
Yeah, there are still groups who want to try to deny the nomination to Donald Trump. And so in these primaries where you have an opportunity to draw over independents and Democrats into a Republican primary, they're doing their best to try to send a message to Donald Trump and trying to alter the trajectory of the race. The truth of the matter is that Donald Trump is very, very strong in Michigan. And even though there is not a Democratic primary to play here, even though, South Carolina is Nikki Haley's former stomping ground as a governor, and they're trying to, boost her numbers there. The truth of the matter is that Donald Trump continues to poll very well with Republican primary voters. And so the expectation is that he will do very, very well in South Carolina and very well in Michigan. So again, there are those who are trying to weaken him for the general election. They're trying to maybe try to take this to a convention fight. And if they can show that Nikki Haley has any standing whatsoever, they'll try to use that as an argument as to why Donald Trump won't be or can't be the Republican nominee.
Yeah, the numbers here in Michigan, really, it seems to be a foregone conclusion. But let's talk a little bit about the Michigan GOP right now. I mean, they have a candidate who seems to be leading in a lot of the polls here in Michigan that we're seeing. And usually the strength of a candidate on top can help races down below. But you have a Michigan GOP that seems to be floundering in terms of cohesiveness and also fundraising at this point. What do you make of the Michigan Republican Party right now?
Yeah, that's obviously a very weak point within the party in the state. I will say this, yesterday you had a Republican Senate candidate drop out, making that race a little bit more clear in terms of who the front runner is. Obviously, Donald Trump will do very well here in the primary. And then you have a very concerted effort at the House Republican level to do fundraising for those races. So even though the actual state party itself is in disarray, and it doesn't look like that's going to be solved or resolved anytime soon, there are, I guess, glimmers of hope or rays of sunshine for the Republicans, that they are sort of getting their act together. And Donald Trump has said that Pete Hoekstra is his person. The RNC has said that. So I think, and they're raising money into a PAC to support candidates here. So it may not be smooth, it may not be easy, but I do think that the Republicans in Michigan are slowly kind of getting their ducks in a row, and will be able to play at least in some races and have at least a some type of impact in the House races, the Michigan State House races here in November. So it's not going to be as robust as it has been in the past. It will not be as coordinated. It will not be as organized, but they will be able to put forth pretty solid campaigns on behalf of limited members in the state House races.
Yeah, interesting to watch for sure. You mentioned that James Craig dropped out of the Senate race, as might be eyeing looking at the mayoral race here in Detroit. Dennis, before I let you go, give me, for all of us who are kind of watching this, you're a political consultant. You have a really practiced eye on this. 3 things that we should be watching out for in this political year here in Michigan.
Well, obviously, there's still a divide within the Democratic coalition, if you will, with Israel and Hamas being a very big issue, and fracturing that that unity within the Democratic Party. Donald Trump's voters are going to turn out in November of 24, and so if there is deviation from Joe Biden, whether people who choose not to vote in the presidential or vote for a third-party candidate, you may see a repeat here in Michigan of what you saw in 2016, where there was about 5.5% of the vote cast for a third-party candidate, and that was enough to deliver the state to Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. Second issue that you really want to focus in is the economy. I mean, even though the macro numbers are improving, a lot of people here don't feel it in their pocketbooks when they go to the grocery store, when gas prices fluctuate from being somewhere around $3.25 to just a little bit under $3 a gallon. That affects their budget, their personal budget, and that affects how they look at the overall economy. And how they take that into the election. Obviously, Donald Trump is going to try to say his 4 years, the economy was booming and everything was great, and Joe Biden has to fight against that. And I guess lastly, the criminal cases that Donald Trump is facing, there are suggestions that if he were to be convicted, that would eat into his support among, likely Republican voters, as well as maybe some independents. So whether those cases are heard, whether there are verdicts coming out of those cases, will be, again, something that could impact the overall turnout on behalf of Donald Trump. So those would be the 3 things that, as we sit here in February, about 8 months away from the election, that we should keep our eyes on.
Absolutely, and it could change from there. We'll be talking about it. Dennis Darnoy, thanks so much for joining me, political consultant, founder of Densar Consulting. We'll be talking again, my friend. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.